And we have yet to talk about the coaching search for the Pacers, which I know you're not involved in that, but it is continuing to ongoing. Everyone's asking, and I'm like, and these new coaching hires or openings, they don't exactly help the situation, but I think the Pacers are probably far enough along into where they're going that they already know which direction they're going, and that probably won't have any effect on that. But it will be interesting to see where they end up. But I know that they know this. You can't screw this one up. You can't miss. You got to get this bunt down. You cannot. It's like hitting a bunt. You have got to get this bunt down because the runner's coming. It's a squeeze bunt. You can't miss this.
Yeah, this is one where they in Kevin Pritchard's comments last week, he said, look, we took a chance. We went outside the box with an assistant coach that we thought was a really good X and O's guy. And I think he was from an offensive end in particular. I think the defense, we all know, struggled this year. But I would think, I don't want to call it a safer option, but I think they go with somebody that has a lot more experience, that can bring an assistant coaching staff that he is very comfortable with. I would say he or she, but if you're going to go the female route, and I think Becky Hammon is going to be a head coach. She will be a head coach. Yeah, I do. I think Kara Lawson has a chance to be a head coach in the NBA. I just don't know if it maps out with where the Pacers want to be right now, because they probably need somebody with head coaching experience. But we'll wait and find out. I do think, though, Jim, I think those two coaches on the female, Kara Lawson and Becky Hammon, especially Becky, I think she will be a head coach in the NBA easily within the next 5 years. It could be a lot quicker. I've always thought that she may be the coach in waiting in San Antonio when Greg Popovich steps down, but we'll just have to wait and see.
And Chris, one thing I wanted to point out about this, or not point out, but just kind of talk about, is you look at Twitter and there's so many experts out there talking about the Pacers needing to make, hurry up and make this hire for the head coach. And my two thoughts to that are, you want to make sure you get this thing right. And the second thing is again, I think people would have thought Stan Van Gundy was going to return to New Orleans. You thought Scott Brooks would return to Washington. So I'm fine with them waiting out, because you never know what's going to happen in the NBA, who's going to become available. I think it's best that they weigh all of their options unless they are 100% sold on one guy. So I have no problem with this not being a, snap quick hire.
Yeah, I mean, it does complicate the process that you have two more openings. So now there are 6 openings. You've got the opening in Portland. You've got Brad Stevens hiring a coach in Boston. You've got Orlando, which is a little bit different, I think, than any of the others, because that is a total rebuild. They have gutted that franchise as far as their star players. If you look in Portland, they've got Lillard and McCollum. So it will be interesting. So does it give the advantage to some of these coaches that are thought to be one of the top candidates, that gives them some negotiating opportunities to see what might be out there? That will be the interesting thing to see. But I agree with you. I don't think you have to totally rush, but you've got to do your homework, and you've got to get somebody that you think will fit the culture of the Pacers and who can also help establish a culture with the Pacers. I think that's one of the things that probably failed with the head coaching hire with Nate Bjorkgren, is they were not able to continue the culture that they had, and he was not able to establish a culture that he wanted as the head coach. So that's all important. X and O's are important, but the relationship with your organization and the relationship with the players, and it's not just the players, it's the entire organization, from the president of basketball operations down to the head athletic trainer. Everybody's got to be in sync, and that's something the Pacers, I'm sure, are concentrating on right now.
And this is a quick question too, I guess, in big picture, I guess. Do you think the culture changed and has not been the way it was under Larry Bird? I mean, that's kind of a big picture question, but we haven't seen the kind of team chemistry we were accustomed to seeing. I mean, we always saw the Pacers play well together as a team, I thought, under Larry Bird for the most part. And I don't know that we've seen that the past couple seasons. But do you think that the team culture has changed without Larry Bird?
No, I think Kevin Pritchard has been able to extend that culture. I think the thing that they got away from this year, and I think when I talk about culture, might be on the defensive end. Um, they weren't as good or as connected defensively as they need to be. The Pacers have always been sort of known as a hard-nosed team, and a lot of that probably came from Dan Burke, who's on the sideline now with Philadelphia. I thought offensively this was as good as they've been, but defensively they really took a step back. And if you think about it, they had the same personnel this year as they had a year ago. And last year they were top 7, 8 defensively. This year, as bad as it looked late, and the numbers really changed, they were, I think, 15th or 16th defensively. But that step back, I think, is the culture that Kevin Pritchard was talking about. The attention to detail on the defensive end wasn't as good as it's been in the past. And that's been sort of what the Pacers have hung their hat on. I think you want to be better offensively. I think you've got to be able to score. I think that has been proven. But if you look at these NBA playoffs, a lot of times these scores are a lot lower than they are in the regular season because possessions change. The game is played a little bit differently in the postseason than it is in the regular season because you have a day off between games. You've got the appropriate amount of rest. When you're playing 4 games in 5 nights or 5 and 7, that makes it really difficult, I think, to have that defensive mindset. But I think if you can have that defensive mindset in the regular season, it carries over into the postseason when you need it.
One thing I'm not going to ask you about potential candidates, obviously, but the one name that has just been jumping out way before it even happened, Terry Stotts. There's just so many things with him, being going to high school in Bloomington, being a former Indiana All-Star. Also, the fact that they parted ways in Portland just on their own. It's like he was just setting the stage almost. But that's a guy that is readily available. You don't have to worry about contract issues. It's just boom. And he just seems like such a natural fit. And usually those things happen kind of quick. And the fact that it hasn't happened yet is a little surprising.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Terry Stotts is one of the top candidates for the job. I mean, you just have to wait and see. I mean, there's so many things that go into, hiring a coach. It's, previous relationships, all those kinds of things. But I would have to think that he is somebody that is at the top of the list. Is he the one? Oh, I'm not going to say that. There's still, plenty of opportunity to, make other decisions. But I would definitely say, Jim, that, for me, just knowing what Terry Stotts is about and how he carries himself and what he did in Portland, I definitely think he's got to be one of the top guys under consideration. Yeah, he had a team in Portland in the Western Conference Finals a couple of years ago. Maybe this year, like the Pacers, though they made the playoffs, they were a little disappointing. Doesn't mean he's a bad coach or didn't do his job. It just means maybe it was time for another voice to be heard in the Portland locker room and for his voice to move on. So I think it will be it'll be a fascinating next week, 2 weeks into the month. I would have to believe that as you get closer to the NBA draft, which is in mid-July, and then free agency, all these teams are going to want to have their coaches. So I would think we will see things start to move here in the next week or so.